there, it's episode 124. Welcome to the Carr Brothers Show. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody, the third of the three Carr brothers.
Well, tonight we're going to be talking about, on this 124th show, we're going to be talking about the 41st provincial election in the history of New Brunswick. Of course, our first premier, who's a female, has been elected, Susan Holt. So we'll be talking about the election results. We'll be talking about what are the next steps for the Susan Holt government of selecting a cabinet and swearing in. That's going to be November the 2nd. And the next steps for the PC Party, the Green Party, and the Liberal Party. And what can we expect there? So this should be a good show to talk about.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see, as we delve into this, how she weaves her way through picking a cabinet. And then we all know what it feels like to not be selected, some of us multiple times. But just to talk about some of those feelings and what those candidates and MLAs now need to expect.
And how long will the honeymoon last? This is a historic win for Susan Holt, for New Brunswick selecting the province's first female woman, first female premier in the province. As well, we went through quite a divisive campaign. A lead up in the last year in particular was very divisive in our province. We'll see if people allow bygones to be bygones and move forward, help support this government. We'll also see what happens with the other political parties. I'll be curious to see if Blaine Higgs is officially going to resign, which we would expect to happen within days. We'll also see what the party does for leadership, transition, new leader, and we'll see also the Green Party. I'm curious to see what David Kuhn and his party members want, because they actually decreased in seats and they decreased in vote count.
So we got quite a number of topics that we'll talk about here
We do.
within the next hour of the Carr Brothers Show. We want to welcome our viewers on CHCO, on our Facebook page, on YouTube as well, and your favorite podcaster. And we've got some great, exciting things happening with CHCO too we'll talk about during the show, so stay tuned with that. Well, let's talk about the election results.
Get right into it.
Okay, seats 31 to 16 to 2. Pretty much essentially a flip from the last sitting of the legislature, guys.
It totally was, and I was actually quite shocked.
Were you shocked?
I thought it was going to be closer than that. I thought it was going to be too close to call. A lot of people were asking me what my predictions were, and I could only say like too close to call. But we did see a number of a fairly high number, maybe more than average, of undecided voters, and that last poll by the TJ indicated that those undecided voters in the city regions were leaning Liberal, which to me I thought, okay, that's maybe an indicator, wasn't quite sure, but we ended up seeing that undecided vote were quietly voting for the Liberals. They didn't want to tell who they were voting for whatever reason, whether they're civil service, whether they're union members, whoever, or any of the number of groups that Premier Higgs picked a little bit of a row with to try to get his point across. But they were quiet and they moved over, and man, did it ever show at the polls. But one thing I did predict, most of the rural ridings were locked in for either side. And now Hampton was kind of a little bit of an outlier. You can say it's close to St. John, Rossay and Quispam, close to St. John, not really rural, but 31-16 to 2. It was hard to watch on one hand on Monday night when I was on the broadcast. It had been a long old slog for some of us watching this
Unfold.
craziness unfold
And
back and forth.
this was, you had decided not to run, so this was kind of the finale of that last year, 2 years, last 6 years, really, journey with Blaine Higgs as leader and as premier.
Even the full last 6 years was not that bad, really. I mean, the first half of it was really good. We did some great things.
Especially the minority government.
Minority government, yeah. It was just in the last couple years, really, that things, last few years, because, I mean, jeepers, it's been 2 years now since I went to DTI, a year and a half since I left. So last few years it's been a little off.
Yeah.
A little off, yeah.
It's hard enough for a government to succeed very long nowadays. So he was in, you guys were in 6 years. That's going to catch up to you as well, decisions that are made. But overall, it just seemed, as you say, he was adversarial with so many different types of groups and even members in his own caucus.
But no surprise to us that he's adversarial with different groups. 'Cause
No.
that's his. That's the way he does it.
Well, he was like that when he was
He's a
finance
head-on.
minister.
Yes.
You knew what you were getting.
You know what you're getting.
Yes.
I, as well, wondered how the election was going until the first polls started coming the weekend leading up. Leading up to the last weekend. So TJ, when they showed the regional votes, and you compared that, as we talked last week, about the 2020 results. So there was some movement happening. A couple of other things was, it seemed quiet out around. I saw, even in our riding where we won the PCs, it still seemed quiet. It seemed people weren't really talking. That, to me, is an indication of a change. Because they don't want to tell their neighbors. They don't want to tell the sitting government. They're not sure. The other indication was the high turnout at the advanced polls, higher than, 2018. 2020, we kind of wrote off as a different type of an election with COVID. So with the high voter turnout, then you wondered, as we talked last week, are they going out to vote for endorsement of the government, or are they going out to vote for change? And thought it was change. I predicted 32 seats would go to the Liberals, and we ended up with 31. I was really surprised about Ted Fleming and Rossay.
Yeah, let's talk about St. John for a little bit.
And I was surprised, but wasn't overly surprised with Quispam Sis and Blaine Higgs, because Aaron Kennedy is from the Ormocto area. We have friends and people that are connected, and we'd been hearing that Aaron Kennedy actually felt that he could win that seat.
I know.
We also saw that the Quispam-Sis Town Council publicly, basically all of them publicly endorsed Aaron Kennedy. That is very unusual for a municipal council to do that with a sitting, basically a sitting member of government, not only that, the premier. So when that happened, it's like, okay, well, something's not going well in that riding for Blaine Higgs.
All but 2 or 3 councillors supported.
Exactly.
The other thing that helps with Aaron is it wasn't his first election either.
True.
He had one under his belt, which helps.
Yeah.
Certainly from 2018, what he learned from that, and then so that was another credit to him to keep that consistency. That
True.
Yeah.
Continue, Joe.
To see, and then Rossay go down, and then obviously the ridings where the current MLAs decided not to run. So in St. John, Lancaster West, Portland Simons. Glen Savoy was close,
Harbour.
but he edged out, and Harbour. So that makes a difference when you're sitting MLA. I think if Jeff ran in New Maryland, Hanwell, he would have won that seat.
Well, being an incumbent especially.
Being an incumbent, having a network.
Yeah.
Tell you, but the numbers that Cindy put up, it wouldn't have been one of my easiest ones.
Oh, no. The margin was close, but would the sitting MLA
could have held it?
But it's a significant loss for the PCs.
Really is, because they considered that one of our safe seats.
Yeah.
And it should have been one of our safe seats, but it just didn't turn out that way.
And the overall result.
A lot of civil servants in that riding.
Yes.
Yeah.
New Maryland, Hanwell.
Hanwell, you're right. Not really a lot of employers per se, and they're driving into town to go to work, and there's things like that.
But the overall result is a significant loss. The worst loss for the PC since '95, really.
Seat count.
The loss itself, 95. It was an increase in seats, but you had 6 or 7 seats. So this is the worst loss, since then.
I think it was about a 3% overall reduction in popular vote.
Yeah.
But that 3% makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference.
But we'd expect to lose some anyway, but maybe not that much for incumbent government.
Yeah. So I would say a couple things. The population increased significantly. I don't know if the overall vote count went down, but then if the PCs only went down by 3, how much was a result of the new people moving in that voted, and they may have voted PC. How much of it were the existing PCs stayed home?
Yes.
And how much of it was the existing PCs voted Liberal or other parties
or other
Greens? So I think it's a combination. The overall net result was down by 3, but the Liberal increase was significant swing.
Exactly.
Significant swing.
It was.
It was. I don't know if it was up overall by 14% maybe, but I know when you break it down by city, St. John was up 27% for the Liberals. Fredericton was up 23% for the Liberals, and Moncton up 16% for overall vote for the Liberals. those are significant gains. And like you said, if the PCs only had gone down on overall by the province by 3, well, those votes came somewhere with a
vote counts in
combination of
rural
them.
areas for a
Combination
lot
of
of
them
PC
not
ridings
going
went
out.
up.
Yeah, so
Percentage of victory
Jeff
for
said,
a lot of the
yeah.
for the PCs that won the rural areas, their vote numbers went up.
There
Their
you go.
percentages went up. So that's
right.
where-
And so
that's where
then
you catch
in the
it.
cities, did it go down even more than 3%? It would have. So
Yes.
that's why the TJ poll, when they went to a regional poll, you could get some information out of that and see what was happening. Because a provincial poll, it's hard to
Well,
tell.
It just wasn't enough polling.
No,
going on.
and
No.
also prior to that, there was only a small sample size.
Mhm.
The TJ poll had 1,500, which helped make it more significant. I think also the way the campaigns were run. Susan Holt ran a good campaign. She was a positive campaign. She basically stayed on message. It was a message of hope and change. Those are pretty easy things for
Yeah.
opposition
I
to
know.
go on.
It's hard to defend when you're a government that's been in power and
Yeah.
all across Canada and in a lot of jurisdictions. Incumbency is very difficult if you
Yeah.
don't have a show a plan for the future.
Well,
Well, all
And
three
look,
of us
very
said,
hard.
Jack, you were on Rogers TV commentating election night. Jeff, you were on CBC. Both of you did excellent. One of the messages you gave about the government was you have to be forward thinking as a government. Running on your record, it's like also paving a road in someone's neighborhood. It's great that it's done. People expect it to be done. What are you going to do for me tomorrow?
Which road are you going to do
And
next?
what are you going to do next? What's your plan? And so Higgs, by and large, his plan was more of the same. And the really only new thing was a reduction of 2% in HST, which I think for him to do was counter to his image or counter to his I'm not a politician that's going to buy votes at election
give away
time
money.
and give away money.
Yeah.
And how is it going to be paid for in terms of healthcare cuts, in terms of education cuts and social services, when already people felt those areas of government were underfunded, even though there was a significant surplus. So it's really hard being in government. You were saying to begin with.
Even in New Brunswick, we've had 3 one-term governments. This Higgs government was like 1.5 terms, if you want to call it that way, which is minority for the first 2 years and majority. So we have a history of one-term government.
Right. It's
we'll
really
talk about that.
It's really a one-term majority government of Higgs, right?
Right,
it
exactly.
really is, yeah.
So there's a trend there. So now we'll talk about that later in the show about next steps, but we'll talk as well about Susan Holt and what she's got to do to prevent a one-term government, because there's obviously a trend there. What about the Greens have gone down about 3 or 4% from last election, lost a seat, not gaining. Although overall they were around 20%, I believe, which is still really, really good province-wide, but not picking up. They're not picking up.
So did their loss went to the Liberals?
I would say that it did.
I don't think they stayed home.
No.
And I think by and large too, or even if it stayed the same, or roughly the same, it didn't result in seats. Obviously, did you say their vote? Yeah, their vote count went down slightly.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
they
they
would
would
vote splitting. Like people were strategic and
think
said,
they
well,
went
if
to-
they're
Well-
voting Green, they're going to lose their
Yeah.
vote.
Kevin Arsenal had a significant win in 2020, and he lost this time. And I could almost think that a lot of that percentage happened right there in Kevin Arsenal's
sure.
seat
There
in
you go.
Kent County, right?
Very
Sam
good point.
not Sam Johnson, but
Oh, and Luke Randall in Fredericton.
Pat Finnegan beat him. Yeah, and Luke Randall swung it quite a bit, and then
because he went from Green to Liberal.
Hickey was
so.
a big gain, but
And-
he went from the Green. Yeah, Luke went from Greens to
so
Liberals,
those
so
two-
maybe some of his
those-
people followed him. I see
And
what
those
you're
two
getting at.
candidates there, yeah.
And what was interesting was election night when David Kuhn came in to speak. His first statement was, "We continue to grow." Well, they're not growing.
No.
In fact, they actually reduced. And you can make all the reasons, but the fact is you haven't grown. You've actually regressed under David Kuhn. Is he still the best person to lead the party? Maybe he is. But I personally think they have to do some real dig down and say, is this what we want for the future as
I
well?
predict they let him stay this term.
Probably.
I think he's their best bet of hanging around. To be honest.
He meets the match for what they want.
And I suppose it'll be up to him if he wants to stay or not. I think you mentioned that anyway, that as long as he wants it, they'll
I
probably
think
let
as
him
long
stay
as he
there.
wants to stay, they'll let him stay.
Yeah.
I think they like him that much. He shows that great leadership with his party. We don't
He's
always agree with all of his
no,
policies.
but he's,
But I like him.
he's respectful.
He is
Yeah.
respectful.
He would respect people.
and he
you know?
talks to his membership
Yeah.
in a different way than he's like the fatherly figure, the old grampy.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah, he does.
You know, when you're around him, you sense it, and he respects his opposition members. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a pretty good gig there.
And he has
Leader
an
of the third party with official party
yeah,
status.
and he has an important voice to give to keep the government balance in check, and even keep the opposition balance in check.
Well, let's talk about the, well, not many are talking about the NDP, but let's talk about them. 1.3% this election, which was a drop. Last election was 1.72, so it was a drop. Very insignificant, but I'm still surprised that the national, I mean, not that they're flying with high flying colors nationally, but they're still higher than 1.3%. That didn't resonate down to the people in New Brunswick. That's just non-existent practically.
And the provincial NDP here are not the same as the other NDP parties. They're just not, especially when you get to Nova Scotia. And then you get out and you've dealt with different governments over across the country, Joe, and this NDP party here is not the same. No. It's even not even close to the same as when Dominic was the leader of it. Like,
it's gone.
They're a younger group. They're and they'll tell you they're radical. They're activists, is what they would call themselves, as activists. I mean, I see even some of their candidates had on their Twitter profile that they were free Palestine stuff, and they are. If Blaine Higgs says he has convictions, these people have convictions, and that's just not resonating in New Brunswick. I mean, May Foreman pulled a lot of vote in our riding in 2014 against me as an NDP
credible candidate,
and just their style's a little different.
Well,
I can see why they're going down.
If the Green Party did anything, they've locked up that third party kind of position. That people don't see in the NDP. They see that third party option with the Green Party. So, if anything, the NDP has become more irrelevant, and we'll see if anything changes there.
What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, well, the vote count stated overall was 66%. As you said, some people got back in that probably maybe never voted in a long, long time. Other people took a break. But it's still about 66% for voter turnout, which is an interesting number to look at. Overall, I guess it was some ridings were close, others were a landslide. There were some surprises. Ted Fleming, I didn't think was going to lose, and also I didn't think Blaine Higgs would have lost. Just because being an MLA for 14 years, that was a significant win for Aaron Kennedy. I guess what we'll do now is we'll wrap up this segment. It was great to talk about it. We're going to take just a quick little break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the swearing-in process, which is coming up for all MLAs, but also the highly watched and anticipated cabinet selection, and some insights about that as well. Okay. Tune back in. We'll be right back here on the Carr Brothers Show. Hi there, welcome back to the Carr Brothers Show, episode 124. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody, the third of the three Carr brothers.
Okay, so we've talked about the election results of the 41st election in New Brunswick's history. So that was a great conversation. Susan Holt became the first female premier in our history of 240 years of having elections in New Brunswick, the first female premier. Now, the big decisions that have to be made. Cabinet and MLA swearing in has been set for Saturday, November the 2nd. And with that will be the coveted and the most watched and interested part about this phase is cabinet selection. What are your thoughts about that, guys?
Well, first, the day of the week being a Saturday.
Yeah.
That's family friendly.
Right.
Susan is a family of three daughters, school age. And I imagine I know there are other members of the legislature that have newly been elected to the government that also had children and families, spouses that work.
Well, even our supporters can't always take a day off work to come to the legislature. I was pleasantly surprised with the Saturday.
It was a great decision.
Yeah.
It's hopefully for a nice sunny fall day. We don't know. We'll see. But that was the first thing, was the day of the week that was selected.
Yes. That was actually, it's going to be refreshing.
Have you ever seen it on a Saturday?
I'm just trying. I don't think so.
You've seen it outside. You've done it
it's
outside
the
before.
First time it was outside when Bernard Lord first got elected in 1999. The swearing in of cabinet, in particular, I think MLAs maybe. I don't think that was a Saturday. But
I never recalled it being on Saturday.
Me neither.
It's refreshing to see and see how
Good idea.
that goes.
In my 3 times elected, I don't think I saw caucus and cabinet on the same day either.
I have
Actually.
seen. I've seen that.
But
as
Saturday,
well.
I think, is a great chance for those that are celebrating to be in Fredericton to celebrate, and those that just want to see their new MLA, their family are proud of them. They want to be able to be there. They don't have to make alternate arrangements, and they can be there. So I think it's pretty.
I know, and I'm veering off topic, but it just seems to have so many people that are so excited, whether we like it or don't like it, or it's the right choice or not the right choice.
But we've seen that excitement in the past,
I know
ourselves.
and it's been a long time since I've seen that excitement. Though, when you look at a room of people and the celebration, and I don't know, the historic part of it. Anyway, we talked about the election campaigns. I just saw energy in Susan's campaign throughout at the events, and this will carry over. But in addition to the date of the cabinet swearing in, it's cabinet selection. Right. It's the challenge of any leader, any premier. There's different challenges depending on the size of your caucus, which she has a fairly large size of 31, 30 other MLAs. And would there be 15 in cabinet, 15 to 20 in cabinet?
Essentially, she's only going to be able to pick half or a little more than half of them for cabinet. That's a fair-sized backbench.
But if you got it up to about 20, there's no real mandate to be trimming or to be conscious of that.
How many did Blaine have at the end?
So there's
18 or 20?
Yeah. So there's no big push by the public to say, oh, we need 15 instead of 20.
Yeah, because
she didn't run on being.
Someone was a Bernard Lord. In one of the years, went down to like 12 or 13, and then Sean Graham tried the same thing. And I'm not a big fan of small cabinets.
I'm not a big fan.
I really think there's a lot of work to be done and heavy lifting, and we expect a lot, and we should. So if she is 15, 20, there's 15, 10 to 15 that will be left out. Of course, you've got to do the whole gender, geography, language, skills. But she's in a pretty good position to not feel threatened by any one member of the legislature.
Well,
She has a sizable mandate, she had a sizable vote share, and she has a sizable cushion in the majority of her seats, her seat count. So there's not many, maybe none of the MLAs have any type of clout to threaten or suggest. Where we have seen we've seen previously when you win by 1 seat or 2 seats, or 6 or 8 or whatever, but you have a lot less. Susan Holt,
but she shouldn't take that. I hope she doesn't take that for granted either.
Well, that's the thing,
right?
Let's hope not. I mean,
she falls into that trap of taking for granted of having 32.
They've done
31.
They've done
Sometimes it's such a thing. So do you go on re-election, like the close ones? We better get them in because we're looking to build for re-election in 4 years' time. The one that gets to the landslide majority, does that get taken a bit for granted? That, they'll be fine. Because,
is it solely based on skill? Dr. Doran won a seat that was switched and flipped, but he's best suited to be health minister.
I hope she goes by regional, because regions deserve to have cabinet ministers.
Representation.
They know that they need to be at the table. And skill set second. Region, skill set, and then you put your gender parity and all that in there if you want. But if we've seen in the past that gender parity,
just for the sake of it,
can be a drag on your cabinet.
Yeah.
Sometimes people go in there that shouldn't be in there.
But I think because of the number of women that have been elected, then with the regional and skill, I think you're going to pick up. Look at Fredericton. Cindy Miles has the region and the skill.
Right.
She should be in cabinet. In St. John, there's 3, 4 women elected for the Liberals.
St. John, we've got
just one.
Allison Townsend.
Well, in the region.
Allison Townsend's a lawyer.
Beat Ted Fleming.
Ted.
In fact, I think there's about 3 lawyers in the Liberal caucus.
There is now.
Rob McKee, Allison Townsend, and
Alexandra from the Dieppe, who was the chair of the SAMB. So
So in St. John, you've got Allison Townsend, David Hickey, Dr. John Doran,
Kim
Kate Wilcott.
Yeah.
Kate's a former employee of the city of St. John, I think. I'm not exactly what her
Aaron
title
Kennedy.
was. So
1, 2, 3,
picking out of St. John is going to be tough.
4, 5.
Although Blaine had 9
6.
cabinet ministers from St. John.
Oh, yeah.
So.
7 or 6. You got 6
Liberal
MLAs.
all
in
but
St.
Glenn
John.
Savoy and Bill Oliver. I mean, so
Right.
So you got John Herron.
John Hannon, quality.
Who
who was the Kingslayer of 18?
well,
who was going to be the
Came over
and it was
from
a
the
historic, really PC rural riding. It was
long time PC. And actually, there's a few of those seats in St. John, long time PC traditional ridings.
I know.
And would Susan Hull have to take that into consideration, as we mentioned before, for a re-election in 4 years?
Yeah.
So she's thinking that far ahead to help some of these MLAs maintain their seat. That's the other big thing. So you have John Herron, Aaron Kennedy, Allison Townsend, Dr. Dornan,
And
David Hickey, Kate Wilcock.
Yeah, the hard part is
How do you pick? You're
the
not
hard
going to get
part
all 6 in.
By the sounds of it, every one of the 6 are eligible and capable of being in cabinet. But you can't have all 6 likely, but maybe we'll see how she manages. But don't forget, the base of the Liberal Party is really the northern rural, and there are significant wins and significant experience.
Significant talent. We have, I'll just do a recap and then we'll talk about it. So we have Gilles Lepage,
former cabinet minister.
elected since 2014. We have Guy Arsenault. Jeff, you've
former
sat with
MBTA
him.
president, as well as
former
been
MP.
an MLA for
And a member of parliament.
and a member of parliament. Very significant experience.
Beldoun is Marco LeBlanc. He got re-elected.
Renee Lagasse.
Renee Lagasse.
Rene Legacy. He's been elected since 2020.
I actually see him going. He has to go in cabinet.
They're talking about
He's
potentially
just so-
finance minister.
Yeah, he's so level and calm and knows his files and treats people respectfully. Just a good guy for the north, for the region, I think, as well. So
And then in the Pissaquit, we have Luke Robichaud.
newcomer.
Former mayor of Packenville.
Yeah.
For 6 years or so. Isabel Terrio,
Well, there's another strong.
deputy leader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Caracat.
Yeah.
Eric Millette. 2020, he's been elected since then. Service Canada employee for 35 years. Keith Chason, Jeff.
Keith Chason, strong opposition member against us. Like, he could get up on any file, in any committee, any question period, and he could do his thing over there. He was one of the opposition members that carried that caucus in opposition. I like Keith, good guy. Just feeling a little soft for him here because I don't know if there's room for everybody. I know there isn't.
Sometimes good guys don't get in.
Sometimes they don't get in.
Fairness doesn't come in it, does it?
Sometimes it
We've
doesn't,
talked about
guys.
this before.
No.
Okay. Well, we'll keep moving along.
Okay.
Sorry, Keith, if you're watching.
So Grand Falls, Chuck Chason.
Chuck Chason, yeah.
Since 2014, been elected as
And,
well. over there.
Francine Landry is another. She's been in cabinet.
Yeah.
We'll see. She's been a strong supporter of Susan Holt from the beginning. How much does
there
that
you go.
play in? Who were supporting Susan from the beginning, and
That plays a factor.
That plays a factor.
Loyalty.
Plays a
Jean-Claude Demare, he was a former
member.
MP as well.
Yes,
as well.
And what about
Yeah.
the Moncton region? Did you?
Okay,
And,
let's go.
and JC also catches my eye because I did it, but he had, I think, the largest vote spread between himself and the second person behind
the
him. He
largest
would
majority.
have been right in there, yeah.
Largest
So,
majority.
yeah.
There you go.
He knows how to campaign, that guy, and he would probably, in opposition, he was probably one of the more active members that would bring motions of substance to the floor and actual legislation to the floor as an opposition member. So, I mean, he worked all the way through it.
Isn't that something though?
Him and I had a
JC.
couple dust-ups, though, over time. We did have a couple
surprised.
dust-ups.
Not surprised.
Dust up.
Well,
JC Demore, though, you mentioned has one of the biggest majorities of the Liberal
think so.
caucus. Well, and that's Madeline Dubé's riding, who traditionally
I
had
know.
some of the biggest
It's amazing.
majorities in
Yeah.
in our party.
I know.
And in that riding, so they get
They like
behind a good MLA.
They like who they like, and the
That's right.
members that
they-
work
yeah.
their constituencies will be.
Okay, well, let's go over to Moncton.
let's go to Moncton.
Okay, this is
It
going to
was a
be
full
interesting.
sweep,
What
basically.
a battleground there. We'll include Miramichi, I guess, in there,
Yeah.
and just talk about the overall region. So
So in
Sam
Moncton,
Johnston.
well,
and,
a couple of members a couple of cabinet ministers got defeated in Moncton. Or you're talking about...
Well, we're going to start
Miramichi and
Miramichi, but
Moncton,
Regent
Oh, yeah,
Savoy.
yeah.
Yeah, so
Savoy
Regent
went down.
Savoy,
does
well-liked,
does that
defeated.
play into a cabinet selection, though, when you bring down a cabinet minister, I guess, is what I don't know. That's just something I'm throwing out there to remember who got defeated. Anyway, so Miramichi and...
Well, and Sam Johnson, would he be the only one for Miramichi
He
right
looks like
now
the only one
for the
from-
most part? Michelle
yeah.
Conroy got reelected, Mike Dawson got reelected, so that might bode well for Sam Johnston then.
to go in. Was he councillor or was he... No?
City councillor, yeah.
Yeah.
So...
So we'll move over into, Kent North.
We'll
Pat,
just skip past
Pat,
that.
yeah, we'll leave that up for Susan to decide.
It's happened on the other side,
That's
though.
going to be her problem.
It's happened before when
I
the
know.
PCs were in and you have one PC member. And
Yeah, and it's not necessarily a shoe-in.
And if you leave them
A
out,
region out.
doesn't the region get
I think
upset?
I think
A
they
little
do.
bit.
I think they
Especially
do.
Miramichi.
I think
They-
they
I
do.
expect him to be in.
I expect him to be in, but
So we got now more into the Kent North. Pat Finnegan knocked off Kevin Arsenault,
big experience.
I know.
former MP, tons of experience.
Yeah.
And Benoit Bourque, Jeff.
Oh yes.
Benoit Bourque's been in
Very
cabinet,
much.
Health
in and out of
minister.
cabinet.
Been in
he's
cabinet,
health,
been in-
education.
Yeah, very
too.
experienced. Yeah, or at least a critic. He hasn't been education minister, but he's been critic of education.
Okay, well, he was a health minister.
he
That's
was
where
health,
the lines go.
That's going to be a tough call. Are they two members beside each other, near each other? So,
So that's just those two.
I
Then
know,
you
right?
get into Robert Gauvin
Right?
oh yeah,
over in
Up in
Shediac.
Yep.
Shediac,
Yeah, yeah,
Shediac
exactly.
Bay, yeah.
yeah. He's the first
does he
kind of
get in?
Blaine. He's the first cabinet minister of Blaine, or first member that left.
I don't know if he gets in.
I don't think Jeff?
I don't know. There's no guarantee for Robert.
No, he's been in a tough
think
spot
so.
ever since he was
Up in
disgruntled
Shippagan.
with the PCs.
The pressure up there, but I think
No.
that was part of it, if so they say, and I'm not
And when
sure.
you switch parties like that, the people that you switch to don't necessarily trust you, and the people you
He's,
left don't trust you. And
He's been out. He has been out throughout time campaigning with Susan,
Yeah.
going all over
He's
the province
very,
in
very-
southern New
yes.
Brunswick. But I mean, as MLAs, we do those things to position ourselves when the time comes to get on that short list.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Robert could be a victim of the large caucus
numbers.
and the regional.
Well, let's keep
Same with Jacques and
Jacques
Jacques
LeBlanc.
LeBlanc. I love Jacques to death. Worked with him.
yeah,
He treated me very well when I was a minister. He didn't come at me too hard, but I always
Someone you could work with.
allowed him to come into my boardroom and talk to the staff, as I did anybody.
Yeah.
And that kind of keeps them a little quieter when you get into the legislature, if you give them that little bit of space. So, former mayor of Shediac.
so again, very capable members.
Right.
Susan
Yep.
spent a lot of time getting good candidates, and the ones that,
Yep.
that have stuck around, that they're good. They're good. So it's,
But will Jacques be a victim of that regional
well, and being
gender,
very
possible
popular.
gender parity? I don't know.
yep.
So we got some more here. Natasha Vautour
So-
with Dieppe member Cook.
Don't know her. She's a newcomer.
Former teacher, now works with Brilliant Labs, so
Ooh.
education perhaps.
Yes.
Moncton East, Danny Allen's big part of his
Alexandre.
riding was
Alexandre.
Alexandra Doucette,
Yep.
a lawyer. That's the third lawyer. I think we
Yep.
talked about that.
Yep.
Former head of the New Brunswick Acadia Society.
SAMB. So
Moncton Center. Well,
Could
that's
be-
Rob
It
McKee.
could
So.
really be expected by the Liberal base that Alexandra goes in, especially from the SAMB.
potentially, but I would expect Rob McKee. He's played a significant
Well, Rob
role
has to go in.
opposition.
He was opposition leader
He's
for
a lawyer,
Susan.
lawyer as well, and has been loyal to Susan, and not just that, but he's been a heavy lifter with her policy
He
and
was kind of the de facto
leader.
leader when she was still sitting up in the bleachers, I think,
Yeah.
before she won her seat.
Yeah, and he
in
was leader
Bathurst.
of opposition as well.
So all of the people you've mentioned, like, have
We're
the
not
chance.
done
Oh,
yet.
there's more.
Oh my God.
Oh, there's more.
we got Claire Johnson in Moncton South,
Right.
university professor.
Who defeated,
Defeated
Greg
a cabinet
Turner?
minister, yes.
Greg Turner. So
Ricky, Lynn Chantal Boudreau, as well elected in Irishtown. Resource teacher and former principal professor at University of Moncton.
How many teachers do we
Wow,
have?
jumping.
There's
There's
quite
a number of
few.
them there.
There is. There's probably 5 or 6 then that you've named
Wow.
already.
So there you go.
I
That's
think you skipped. Did you skip one? Oh,
Which
the one
ride
that,
were you
the one that
thinking
beat Ernie Steves. That's a lady as well,
yeah.
and I think
that's,
she's
right
an
there.
immigrant.
Oh yeah, Tanya Sodai.
So she's probably the first recent immigrant that's
New
been
Canadian.
elected, new Canadian,
New Canadian, yeah.
in the legislature. Is kind of so. I don't know her. I don't know her capabilities or anything, but
Commercial realtor.
really.
Yeah.
So there's another one.
There's another one.
We also have to think they'll have the speaker. So someone gets to be the speaker. That's
Someone gets to be whip.
someone gets to be
caucus chair.
All
someone
those
gets to be
important roles.
House leader.
And then we got the two deputy speakers.
And then the chair
Deputy
committees,
speakers.
chair committees too.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
covenant
You know.
chair committees. And
So if she got 20 in, so you take away her seat, like her, so that's
You're at
Premier,
30.
So you're at 30. Take away the speaker, you're at 29. If you get 20 in there, then you're down to 9. Then you've got caucus chair, so you're down to 8. Whip, down to 7.
House leader.
speaker.
House leader, so you're
Two
down to
deputy
6.
speakers.
Did I take the
Speaker.
speaker already?
You did the
No.
speaker, but not the two deputies.
Two
Oh,
deputies, so
okay.
now you're down 5 and 4.
So I hate to
and
be
you
the-
got 3 that,
I hate to
well,
be
they're
the-
not going to be very happy.
No, I hate to be the 3 or 4.
Right. But then you got committee chair, maybe of one of the
Maybe,
committees.
maybe.
You might smooth that over a bit.
And you might have some members that really don't want to go into
That just-
cabinet.
right.
Well,
You maybe always have 1 or 2 that.
there are members that went into cabinet in 18 with me that were brand new MLAs, and
Yeah.
they thought, you know what, I didn't really expect to be in cabinet because I thought I would just take the first year or 2 to
No.
figure out what this job really is.
Yeah, and it's
And how do you maneuver it?
it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like it at the time, but when you do have that time to be a good member of the legislature, a constituency MLA, we've seen far too often when Bernard Lord was first elected, people going right into cabinet. Blaine Higgs, every government
one
has
term.
it. Yeah, that they just have
Great
not
term.
been able to experience the balance between their writing work and their
But it's-
ministerial work.
And it's not, you can't even chalk it up to them just being new. The support systems have to be there within government or a government member's office or whatever to support these people too. And it isn't always top notch because most times the people that are in charge of that have never been elected or
No.
don't know what it means to get your name
No.
on a ballot and be successful
No.
or not.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing that parties miss and government miss
details.
coming in.
Yeah.
Is the little things. So how do you daily or weekly keep up to date with these people, whether they're in cabinet or not, to get the supports that they need to get reelected, and keep reminding them what matters most. It's your constituents that elect you, not Chancery Place,
No.
not the legislature,
Not the party
not
office.
the cabinet, not the party office. They don't vote for you.
No.
Right.
How do you like that?
I think that's great. So we're going to take a break after this segment, and when we come back, we're going to talk about next steps for the PC Party, the Liberal Party, and Greens, and that'll be a great little discussion as well. So we'll get right back here on the Carr Brothers Show. Hi there, welcome back to the Carr Brothers Show. It's episode 124. I'm Jack.
And I'm Jeff.
And I'm Jody, the third of the 3 Carr brothers. We've been having a great conversation. I'm glad you've joined us. We've got new viewers on Rogers and Shaw TV as well.
Later this week.
CHCO as well, and that are watching, and people at home on Facebook and Live and YouTube and all those other channels you've set
Yeah.
up, Jack.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Podcast.
So really happy to have people joining us. It's great. So we've been talking about the election results. We've talked about the cabinet selection and mulled that around like everyone else will as well. But it's great perspectives. Now let's talk about next steps, what we can maybe expect. Let's start with the PC Party. We have Blaine Higgs that lost his seat. Did get less popular vote overall than the past election, but losing your seat, first time since Richard Hatfield for our party, for any party since 1987, a sitting premier losing their seat. I think he's all but said that he'll be retiring. It's just a matter of when he'll be announcing that. What do you guys think here?
Well,
Let's
the more
roll out.
he does come out and talk, so he came out election night 2 or 3 times to the camera, and the more he came out, this seemed to be the more comfortable he was, and signaling more and more that, you know, that I'll have to go, I just need to consult with, and that's okay too. But we've seen other years and other elections when the sitting premier doesn't even lose their seat, and right away they start the process of saying, okay, the electorate has spoke. They didn't want me governing any longer, so I'm going to step aside and allow the party to start the next steps or whatever. So I was a little surprised at that he didn't, but at the same time not, because he does like to think things through a little bit and talk to whoever. But I think we're going to have to see in the next few days a decision one way or another on what he's doing. I mean, I don't think it's healthy for him to stay, not only for part, but for him and Marcia as well, because it's just going to continue to be a barrage of the pundits and the media and the critics, like, how come you're not leaving? How come you're not leaving? Or this or that or the other thing. So it's the right thing to do, and I think he's pretty much signaled that he's not going to stick around, but we'll see.
I think losing the seat in some ways there's a bit of an advantage personally where he doesn't have to be in the legislature and sit there, I guess, after a defeat. The downside is there's one less seat for a new leader to be able to acquire, let's say, if there's a by-election for a new leader down the road. That's the sort of the downside that way from a party perspective. But I, as well, on election night, being on Rogers TV, I just figured as well that it just would make sense to resign as the leader. I just see no any party or anything facing that would have to step down, and you have a fresh start for the party.
It's the worst result since 1995, or since before 95, really. And also, the last time the sitting premier lost their seat was when Richard Hatfield lost. So the party is divided in a bunch of fractions, and by and large, that's the job of the leader, is to keep your party united, keep your party strong, go into an election and win. And that hasn't happened. There's been a fraction of, a year, 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
And the sooner the party can move on and start healing those wounds, the first step would be for the leader to step down. I mean, it's just got to happen. At some point, you do it the easy way now, or drag this out. Let's
think logistically about it strategically. That caucus now, as small as it is, has to start preparing itself for what an opposition role is
in the legislature.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they don't have a lot of time.
Nope.
Because swearing in is November the 2nd.
Yep.
The legislature is going to sit not long after that, because there's important fall business that has to be done before Christmas.
Susan wants to get to work. She said that.
So they need to prepare. They need to know who their interim leader is going to be. They need to know that the interim leader then chooses who that chief of staff is that helps them through that next, and who their supporting staff. So there's a lot of work to do. So the more you drag that out and kick it down the road, you're leaving that group of people in a vulnerable situation.
It'll be interesting.
And we know, so just to finish on that, we know that when Jeannot Volpe became the interim leader after Bernard Lord left, it was very important, and he knew his role was every day that you go through, the interim leader has to make a dent in that armor. You cannot wait till 2 or 3 years in to do it. You need to do it from day one. So those people need to be prepared.
I know.
And the longer that gets kicked down the road,
I know,
the longer it takes them to strategize.
In the next few days, we will tell whether or not Blaine and his leadership, quote-unquote, team at the party office and the Premier's office want to continue to hang on to their inside power, inside control, or whether he's prepared to fully step away and let the party move on. We will be able to tell whether or not things are being influenced by him and his leadership in a continued basis, or whether they're willing, as I said, to move on. We've seen a notice already come out this week that there's an annual general meeting of the party on November the 9th that gives barely a 2-week notice to meet the Constitution. It's quite surprising.
Some of us didn't even get the email.
Some didn't get the email.
No, I got emails. I got emails all through the campaign, but nothing about this one. You got...
I got the email.
Did you get emails all through the campaign as well?
Yeah,
you got the email and we didn't get the email.
And so there's other people, some did, some didn't.
What's
going on? There's a lot of mistrust. We see one of the MLAs, Sherry Wilson, arguing with a former MLA, Ross Wetmore, and there's a lot of division. And is that division going to continue, which will continue to encourage and support the government of Susan Holt, or will the leader and the existing leadership team start moving on?
So one thing that does happen, and the MLAs decide this, do they, is the leader of the opposition?
I've been involved with one leadership change, and that was David Allward stepping down, and the caucus had their own vote on who they wanted to be interim leader.
And that was
that's how that, and Bruce Fitch ended up being that interim leader.
And was that an anonymous vote, or was it a...
No, it was secret ballot.
Secret ballot.
Secret ballot vote, and that's because you don't want more division. Like you don't want,
hurt feeling.
The way I see it, yes, you don't want like a. So I think Trevor and Bruce were the two that was down to, and Bruce won the vote, and you want that to remain private. And
so it's not now.
Well, we know who it was down to.
They both put their
Everybody
names
knew
in.
who it was down to.
Yeah.
We know Bruce won.
Yeah.
But it's who voted for who is what they want to remain private.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
I've been through two, and both the exact same thing. So when Bernard Lord lost, we lost the election in 2003. Immediately, basically, he said he's going to resign as leader, move forward into a transition. What happens is your caucus meets. Sometimes it's the first meeting after. It probably is. It usually is, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
The office has to be set up and transferred.
So I would see that Leader Higgs would come into caucus, have a final kind of debriefing. Everyone say you did a good job. We're sad. It's not right. Talk about whatever. Rehashing over it. The leader then, he's unelected in this case. He would have to step out. There'd be a caucus meeting that would say who's interested. Probably prior to then, there's already some indication of who's interested to have their name put in the hat. And then caucus would have a secret ballot, and so I expect that caucus meeting would be happening before Friday this week, if not then the earliest Monday next week or Tuesday. In terms of, and then right away that person then starts, as you said, their staffing, who's existing, who's transitioning, office space, who's allocating the office space. Critic roles,
there's a lot to do.
A whole bunch to do.
A lot to do. A lot at.
You need a strong support. You need a strong chief of staff that actually understands what's going on.
So it's going to be interesting to see how much Blaine Higgs wants to hang around.
But
and
that's
how much
separate from leader of the opposition is separate from leader of the party.
True. Right. But he can still try to influence
Yes.
the caucus selection. His staff could still influence who's at the party office, who's at the government opposition office.
Some jockeying.
There
and
could
that
be
sort of
some
stuff.
jockeying going on. There could be a delay in change in party leader. So it's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. It depends on whether people want to see the writing on the wall and make the change, or go the easy way, the hard way. The annual meeting has already been set for November 9th. I believe that there's a mandatory leadership review of the defeated leader after an election.
If they don't step down.
If they don't step down. So there's, he basically all but said he was stepping down. It's just a matter of when. Okay, well, are you going to say I'm going to resign and see this through to the new leader in next April and stay lingering along or not?
See, I personally think what should happen is the leader of the opposition should become the interim leader of the PC party. That's sort of the
pretty
cleanest.
typical.
I think it's happened
Pretty
typically.
typical. Yes, that's what usually happens.
Usually, yep.
Because if you have two, I don't think that's going to be very
Doesn't
good
work.
for
No,
moving forward.
That's why you have an executive director and a president of the party.
Right.
Which has
To
been
run that operation.
Yeah, and in fairness, has not had the opportunity to actually have full reins to run an organization as the president of the party. You're pretty typical that you work with the sitting premier of what will happen,
And leader,
and the leader. The other discussion, I think for interim leader, best positioned for the PCs is Glenn Savoy. I think hands
That's what I
down.
thought.
Hands down. I heard you mention Glenn. I think hands down he's best positioned for the party overall.
And why is that?
Well, because he's bilingual, because he's got experience. He has been elected for several years.
Former House leader.
He's the former House leader. He also is very capable at speaking publicly and articulating a message. And so for all those reasons, he also has experience in cabinet. He has policy experience.
Well, he's non-controversial
He's got all of the
as well. Like he won't be. He's not off message. He sticks with the message.
He's got all the attributes now. Obviously, it's a decision of caucus. I heard Bill Hogan said he wouldn't rule it out. Maybe others might, but I think
Glenn also has good question period experience.
Well, exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So you're not having to train somebody new on how to ask questions.
he can speak publicly. He can ask questions.
It's just not something anybody can go in and think they can do and do it. You got to get your questions, but hold a minute, blah blah blah.
And even if you've
He
been
has
in
experience.
and even if you've been in a minister's role,
asking questions is
know,
totally different.
It's answering questions and asking questions are completely different.
Yeah, that's
For
right.
sure.
And with less resources in your opposition staff in the office, a lot of times this is the topic that a lot of times the MLAs come up with even more of the questions rather than the answers where you have your whole staff and things. It's the questions. A lot of times it's written by the MLA.
It is.
strategized by the MLAs, and then taking the lead. So you guys have great points. Like, Glenn can get up, this is the topic, now do your 10 questions.
And carry
do your 10 questions.
And carry it, yeah.
You know.
It's going to be a real eye-opener for a lot of those MLAs that, A, have never been elected before, but B, have never been elected in opposition that are coming from ministerial roles, because there's a lot of, like you said, the resources. Sometimes you're writing your own member statements. A lot of times you're writing your own questions for QP. You're writing your own stuff for committee work, and
Responding
it's and then you got to run out and do a scrum. Whereas a lot of these ministers in the last group, they didn't scrum much. They shied away from the media. Now they've got to be out there. The critics have to be out in the media in order to dent that armor.
And before you might say, oh, just it's opposition, doesn't matter what you say, you're not accountable. These members going into opposition, except I think 3 newly elected, a lot of them have been in
Have a
cabinet.
track record.
And they've been in cabinet, and they've made decisions. And we already seen the spillover with Sherry Wilson and what she's saying now that she's in opposition. Well, she can fine. She doesn't matter to her, fine. But it does have an impact, and it can continue and carry over. So the next question is for the PCs is, when do they have a leadership convention?
Right.
And that's if Blaine Higgs leaves gracefully, easily, quickly, and doesn't try to continue to influence leadership to selection in the next stages. But if he does, that being said, and the party is left to that decision, when is the best time for leadership? Personally, I think sooner the better. I in previous years, it's always been said, oh, well, let's wait, let's not set them up, and let's not get them out there right away. Let's give time for more people later. I really think this time my opinion has changed because I think there's been such a deficiency in the party in being active at building riding associations. Wow. And I think more than ever, people are focused on who is the leader. That leader would have time to build, time to speak, time to meet, time to recruit,
raise money,
and people coalesce around who the leader is. Look at Susan Holt, Team Holt, Susan Holt, Team Holt. She also had the need for change and the want for a change, but people coalesce around. So I'm kind of thinking to bring together and to start coalescing around someone maybe sooner rather than later.
So you're thinking next year?
Yeah, I'm thinking probably the spring, probably by June at the latest. I don't see why not. Why would you linger it on? Maybe you guys have other thoughts about that.
Well, I do. I guess my old-fashioned thought is not to be too early, because you don't want to peak too soon. The other important thing we don't know
You mean the
about,
leader doesn't, you don't want the leader to peak too soon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other important thing that I think we need to consider is what we don't know, and is if a leader is chosen and they're not elected, who's paying that leader's salary? We don't know how much money is left in the bank account of the PC party of New Brunswick.
Yeah, right.
So somebody's got to pay that person, because you cannot be
Looks like the leader's going to have to raise their own money
The
too.
leader might have to raise their own money.
Maybe.
Which isn't that's
because
what the
you know
leader
what?
should be doing.
Because
anyway.
I don't
But
think
that could restrict good candidates. If there's no
Yeah.
money in that bank account,
Yeah.
good candidates are not going to go out there,
Yeah.
set their career aside and their salary, and their
personally-
mortgage and their car
I
payment,
know, but
and be the leader.
I personally don't think a party will recruit people to be involved if they don't know who the leader is to raise money. You would raise money better by having a
You
leader.
can do it better, but
Yeah.
an interim leader can still start that process of fundraising.
They will try to start it, but
But
yeah.
we've seen in the past that never happened either.
No, it doesn't happen.
Well, the benefit of an interim leader, though, maybe a little longer than the spring, and I just used the Jeannot Volpe model. He hammered, and I think Jeff mentioned too, right on day one, he gave no honeymoon for it. He was almost the only one in the province that, and we're like, why are you, this is too much. He said, no, I have to hammer. That's my job as an interim leader.
Yeah.
Hammer away, criticize, be opposition, so that when the new leader comes in, they're not wearing a lot of
All that negativity.
bulldog type stuff
Yeah.
during the honeymoon. So because the theory is you don't give them the honeymoon and a free grace until spring, until you gotta. So an interim leader can be that sort of bulldog. But I see your point though,
Well,
Jody, as well. Is sooner
In Jody's
they can
defense,
do that, they can get organized.
there's a lot of build that has to happen in seats that we lost. There's a lot of work that needs to do in some of those areas, and are those progressive conservatives in those ridings waiting for a good leader to to take over so they can get back on board
Yeah.
and get those seats back and get us back into government.
And I think it helps the party move forward instead of going backwards.
For
As
uncertainty, you
Camilla says, let's turn the page. Let's
We've seen
hash over
what
the
we're doing now didn't work.
No,
so
but
why do they think that that's going to work
That's right.
again?
Hash over some of the infalls, pitfalls, what happened, what didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
You get a new leadership contest. If there is a contest, maybe you're going to eliminate some candidates. But if you can get a leadership and something to look forward to, then you might move forward into something, the next steps, and not keep circling back around of what should have happened and could have happened and didn't happen and would have happened, and if that happened, you then start moving forward. And that's also another advantage. And the other question will be, is does someone within caucus try to run for leader who's already elected? Or do you see people from outside of caucus, former members of the legislature, or other people that might have some interest? So that will be yet to be seen.
Well,
as well.
we got lots more. A few more shows to be able to talk about.
Well,
Yeah.
I think we need to ask people in the Facebook comments or the YouTube comments on this show right here in particular. Do you want to see more talk and then a breakdown of how this election went and what the future looks like for the other parties and what strategies should be taken on and how that works and how that looks? Or do you want us to go back to the old way of bringing on guests every week and talking about these things?
I personally think we could do a little bit of both.
Yes,
I want to
exactly.
hear.
I
I
agree.
do want to hear what some people have to say about the professors, the political scientists, some people that have been involved with both
Right.
campaigns.
Right.
But I want to hear what people have to say as
Yeah.
well in terms
Yeah.
of what they want.
Exactly. Well, let's
Right.
review
we
those.
know the show isn't over for a little bit as far as the political game, because there's a cabinet swearing, you get in the legislature, your throne speech, and all that business has to happen between
there's
now and Christmas.
way more to
We got a
talk.
lot to talk about.
Yes,
way
we
more.
do. So on that note, because a lot of these topics will carry over for the next coming weeks, to come. So let's wrap it at that. Time has run out. I can't believe it, but it has. So we'll have to end it at this, and thank our viewers for watching, and wish you all a good night. See you next time.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.